Okay. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Roger. So my background's naval architecture and project management, and I've worked in the UK, South Africa, Middle East, and New Zealand. I've worked on military projects, commercial, offshore. I've been a designer, shipbuilder, and repair. So I've done quite a wide range. The last 30 years, I've been lecturing, writing, and publishing. And we've done a range of books, project management, so that this is my latest edition, and I've done leadership and entrepreneurship. I've also helped my wife with her fashion design books. We've got project management in one of them. And then we've written a few books on blue water cruising, which is sort of fitted in with our lifestyle, sailing out to New Zealand. Oh, do you want that one? Yeah. I thought you might want the fashion one. No. Currently, I'm writing a book which the title is going to be something like an MBA in Artificial Intelligence for the Industry 4.0 economy. And my wife is writing a book, from my encouragement, Fashion Artificial Intelligence. So I hope we'll have those out in the next couple of years. So when Roger invited me last week to make this presentation, I thought, now what do I know about sustainability? So I quickly went to the definition and picked out the important bits. So I'm going to say a bit about the environment, but it's mostly going to be from the economic side. And then I noticed in one of my books I had actually used this, so I thought, well, I'm partly there already. So this is the bit I'm going to look at, the business side, competitive advantage, and the next slide will actually be probably all I'll say about resources, because I thought it's intriguing. Let me just give you a little bit of background to Industry 4.0, because when I was in South Africa last year, one of my mentors over there, he kept talking about this Industry 4.0. And it was a term I hadn't heard before. In Britain, we tend to talk about the revolution, but we don't tend to sort of say it is the fourth revolution. But this terminology is coming out of Germany, and it's to do with production management. And you've got to think Germany seems to be doing particularly well in the manufacturing side, and it's something that in Britain we don't seem to be using the terminology. But anyway, if we look at sustainability, these are the four industrial revolutions. The first one was about coal, coal and water and steam. Second, oil and gas, nuclear, and this one now is renewable sustainability. So actually it fits in with the topic. Now, when I come to give a presentation or write about something, I tend to start with the life cycle. And what I've done here is I tend to look at the big picture. So I've got the strategy phase, project phases, operational phases. And then this is actually my slide for the 4 Ps of project management: phases, processes, plans, and people. Now, when I wrote my first book, I was essentially here. I was in the execution phase, planning and control, went through all the different techniques that they use. And I don't know if it's an age thing, but as I got older, I tended to look at a slightly bigger picture. And I tend now to look more at the strategy phase. And I think I've probably moved more into program management than project management. And in some ways, the project becomes the minor part. It's the program that you want to implement and operate. And the project just happens to be the way you get it together. Important, but it's not the end result. So I'm going to start here with in the strategy phases, looking at it probably from the CEO level. the vision and values. That's how I would see the corporate level. So the vision, along with my theme of Industry 4.0, is where are we going to go? How are we going to implement Industry 4.0 into our field? And particularly from competitive advantage. So how are we going to stay in the market? Now, from my side, my vision is to sell books. So I need to come up with some new titles, sort out the market. Bournemouth University, what's your vision? Selling students, courses, research. So we all have a strategy and a vision. Then the vision and values go together. So I just want to say a little bit about ethics. This seems to be quite topical at the moment. Should we automate, and how does that relate to employment? So is robots and drones going to be removing the workforce? Now, we have an interesting situation happening here because there is some feedback coming out of America that each robot might remove 6 workers on the shop floor or in a production line. But because of the relationship between America and China, and maybe the same with Britain and China, there's actually a phase we're going to go through now where we're reshoring the work back to the UK and back to America. So the evidence is actually the workforce is increasing. Maybe not on the shop floor, but overall. So this is, from an economic perspective, sustainable. So if I just flick back through here, I'm now going to look at the business case, and then I'm going to go on to the design phase and the execution phase. So the business case I see as the method or structure of how you're going to solve the needs and the vision from the corporate level. And there are a number of ways you would do this. I see this is where agile project management come in, where you go out there, find your opportunities. Entrepreneurship, certainly spotting and exploiting opportunities. But I see AI and Industry 4.0 opportunities as a solution looking for a problem. And very much when computers came out, they were at the same sort of level. So I see that sort of being repeated. Now, from the design phase, this is actually, I'm sure you should recognize this from Portsmouth. This is your aircraft carrier. Now, one of the jobs I had was with the Admiralty, testing models of submarines. See, there's one up here in the background. I was very fortunate in the 70s, just as the British shipbuilding industry was going into recession. This was the Cold War. So a lot of money was going into submarines. But sustainability probably has to be more defined at the strategy level, design level, than at the project level. You were talking about a funnel. It's almost getting constrained as you get down to the project. It's defined what the materials are, the configuration. You notice a bit high tech here, a bit of polystyrene at the front there, just in case they hit the side. It was interesting when the submarines got out of control, you put a full rudder on, they'd actually go down like that, hit the bottom. Now, I was interested in your slide. My slides are not as up to scratch as yours, but this ability we have now with the greater software to actually model the project. And I saw one of the universities doing this. They said, don't tell anyone about it. But they were able to actually, with a petrochemical plant, go step by step through the design. And as they went through, they were able to put in all the materials, and more importantly, the configuration between the components, and also whether they had access. So the capability now is a lot greater because of the new technologies. I'm not sure why I actually put this in, but this is my main slide, which I use to sort of overlook a project. It doesn't relate to sustainability. Now, on the procurement side, I see that there's a lot of talk now about collaboration with your suppliers along the supply chain. So you're not just buying from them, they're actually almost part of the team, as it were. Possibly at the project level, you could make a decision.
It's a touch screen.
Whether you had a night shift, work night shift, where you might actually use more energy. Certainly, recycling. Traveling could be reduced, particularly with technology, virtual meetings. Now, I was intrigued that this was a project I worked on. This is an oil tank farm just north of Cape Town. South Africa, I went to work in South Africa in 1980. And I was fortunate I went to South Africa. Most people are looking to work in Canada and Australia. I thought, no, I'll go to South Africa. South Africa had all these embargoes at the time. Oil embargoes, military embargoes. And I can see now that is the best thing that you can have for your economy, because they had to do everything themselves. And particularly oil, that was the one thing South Africa didn't have. And they built all these tank farms down mine shafts. They were reported to have up to 5 years' supply of oil. So this was jobs for everyone. And a lot of British people were working on these. Now, what intrigued me was that with respect to sustainability, our office was here. And we each had a phone on our desk. This is 1980, so there was no mobile phones. So if you wanted to contact someone, you'd ring them up. But this is site work, so it's more than likely they were on site. And not only is this quite a large construction area, but there was quite a long pipeline to the ship loaders. So what used to happen, we all used to meet at 5 o'clock for a beer. That's when we did all our planning and organised. And it was actually also quite a good team way of doing it. Now, of course, there'll be mobile phones, the internet, virtual meetings. And I wonder whether, although our communication is better, whether we're actually losing that human interaction. There must be a bit of a trade-off there. Now, do you remember when the IBM PC came in? You must remember it, Rod. 1981. That revolutionized project management in a way, because up to that point there were numerous computers. You probably don't all remember this. Each had a different operating system. You had to have different printers, etc., etc. When IBM came in, IBM compatibles came in, and then they started writing the software. So the first project management softwares, Project Manager's Workbench, Artemis, they all came in the sort of mid to late 80s. That brought all the information together. Prior to that, it would have been in different departments, and that was always one of the problems. Now we're looking at search engines. Well, we don't even consider about the AI that goes behind. If you need any information, you're straight on the computer into Google or whatever. I think we're moving into expert systems. So that's where your closeout reports are not going to be something that's filed away. It's actually going to be embedded in the systems. And there's also going to be an element of machine learning where the computer actually solves problems itself. Now, I had one of the students I had in New Zealand, his project was to set up an instrument panel in Antarctica. And it made me think, he goes out on a boat at the beginning of the summer, and he's there for about 3 or 4 months, and then they go and pick him up. Now, when he's setting up that instrument array, if he's short of a bolt or something breaks, he's completely stuffed. And I was telling him, you've got to erect it, take it down, erect it again, just make sure you've got everything ready so you sort of hit the ground running. But I was thinking, with the new technology, 3D printing is going to come in. And just think how useful that is in remote locations. You've got all the files there, and you think, oh, I'm short of this bolt or whatever, and do it. And I thought I'd put this in because I mentioned, my wife keeps telling me, we don't do artificial intelligence in fashion. And I said, what about 3D printing? She says, oh, yes, we make shoes out of that. I said, well, that's AI. They're a bit flash, those shoes, though. Now, I think planning and control is going to change. I'm sure we're going to move to more real-time monitoring, where we can actually see what's going on, with all the sensors. That's going to take off in years to come. There's also going to be an element of predictive maintenance, depending on what type of project you're in. Well, I sort of feel every component that in our private life and business life is going to have sensors. It's certainly been in the aviation industry. It's starting to move into cars. They're going to tell you when you need to do things, which means we have much less downtime, unscheduled downtime, which will make the whole thing more efficient. Back to the petrochemical plant. If you can design or plan your project bit by bit, so then as the project is built bit by bit, so you can then feed into your own value curve. So I see the two going together. There was one project I worked on, built a stacker reclaimer in South Africa. It was a heavy engineering project. But it used to take them 6 weeks to go from the design office or planning office to the shop floor. They subdivided everything into elements of an hour or two. So when the work was done, they knew exactly where they were on that curve. Didn't say it was done on time, but they knew exactly where they were. And I see that happening. There's going to be a lot more there's going to be the ability to plan and control the projects a lot tighter. I think this is my last one. Yeah. So just to sort of recap, I feel that the last 5-10 years has been a step change in capability, speed of transfer of data, processing power, storage, which is related to Moore's law. The Internet of Things, all the components now can be interlinked. You can have control at the different points. You can have central control. So communication is going to be a lot greater. I did a course at Coventry University on computer-aided engineering in 1984. The robots then couldn't walk. They could do this. They're more like a flexible manufacturing system. But now the robots can walk. Drones, they can fly, go down mine shafts, offshore rigs. The capability, in some ways, is only just getting going. So I see a major change in this Industry 4.0. And I hope to have my book out next year. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Rory.
Did I finish on time?
Perfect. I made a couple of observations there. Loved where you finished about the idea that you think it's the tip of the iceberg. That was very much where I got to, because my PhD was all about social media in project management, and I felt there that what we've seen so far is barely even the tip of the iceberg. I think things are going to change radically in ways that we probably can't even imagine, especially not with our sort of age. The other things I was heartened to hear were about you reminding us of your sort of days planning and the project over a beer after the work, which took us back to where we started yesterday when I talked about the first event we held in November 2017, where that was all about putting people back into project management, putting social science back into project management, because my personal view was that that had been largely sort of techno-rationalised that out of project management, so I think that emphasis was great to hear. And I hate to say it, but I was there when the IBM PCs first came in, and as my students will have already heard this, I talk about the fact that we saw in this project, when that was first invented and was rolled out, I saw people who'd been very good project managers because they'd done the human interaction piece, suddenly shut themselves away in their office, spend all their times looking at the MS project and stop managing the team. So lots of echoes there from my personal history.
Yeah.
Okay, so questions for Rory?
Oh, yes.
Hang on, we're going to let Shirley go first. Then we'll continue, Russell. I think Shirley was just picked into the post with her hand up.
And I've put my hand up.
Yeah, we'll come get a second.
She's behind a post.
We'll come to Russell.
So I was intrigued by a phrase that kind of tripped off your tongue right at the beginning. You said, from an economic point of view, this is sustainable.
Yes.
So what other points of view are there about sustainability in your view?
No, I only have that one.
So we can only argue sustainability from a point of
Oh, no, that's the only one I wanted to focus on.
Okay.
The other ones are outside my scope.
Okay. Right, what are they?
Others, wasn't there?
Well, that's from the APM, economic, social and the planet, or it's planet, people and profit. So they tended to be the same. But if you think about if you think about it economically, all projects, in some respect, are to sustain either the business, the facility, infrastructure, social. I mean, even your coaching is to sustain the well-being of either people or.
Yeah, it's not necessarily economically viable though.
Well,
It's economically stable.
I could argue that you get some social and cultural and psychic capital from engaging in coaching. Non-financial capital.
Improved retention,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things. Good economic benefits, I'm sure.
sustainable is a sort of a term that you can take whatever view you like almost. There's a bit of an open scope, wasn't it?
Yesterday provided us with looked it up, I think, found a definition of sustainable, which is to keep things the same. So I think he tweeted about challenging that. If we're going to keep things the same, is that going to stop us going off the cliff? So,
I think it was a slide that I just repeated in fairness.
But the economic view isn't keeping it the same. It wants more transactional benefit, right?
It might be keeping your profit the same. So in other words, you'll lose your profit if you don't produce a new, updated version of whatever you're selling.
okay, Russell, your question, please.
So on Monday I challenged Dr. Martin for the omission of culture from his presentation. So mine's a slightly different take on the same thing. So you've spoken about Business 4.0 coming in. How do we get, because we've got global representation here, how do we get to the globe being at Business 4.0 together rather than having them playing catch up 20 years, 30 years later?
That's not the question I asked you to ask me.
Now that's not the number in 10 years' time.
Commercially, it doesn't work that way. In essence, you want to be a leader and supply to the ones that are following. Because we're not all at the same level. But the challenge for Britain is to be in the leading pack, as it were. And this is one of my concerns, is that they're not talking about the fourth industrial revolution over here. They're talking about AI, but I see the fourth industrial revolution as being slightly wider. There's only one university in Britain doing an MBA in artificial intelligence, which is Coventry. Hopefully Bournemouth will do one soon. Nobody's, as far as I can see from my searches, no universities are talking about the new fourth industrial revolution. So to me, there's an opportunity. How do we all talk at the same level? Probably through the systems that we use. Like we're all using Microsoft. Or almost wherever they're managing a project, they're using Microsoft. I actually got an order for a book for a course they're running in Vietnam. So they must be using Microsoft there. A PMI have actually made project management everywhere. Well, an APM, all the countries they represent.
So Google's everywhere.
Yes, I would have thought so. Maybe not in China. They've got another one, haven't they?
So you given me a hook there. Vietnam, I was explaining yesterday, we went to Vietnam earlier this year. As we got off the plane, we were shocked. Well, no, we weren't shocked. We said, was that cloud? Is that mist? It was pollution. And the disappointment to me, I suppose my hope would be that the developing countries that aren't where we are would be able to bypass and avoid some of the mistakes that we've made in the West. But no, they very much saw that economic development as taking precedence over even their people, because they've got people dying from the pollution. That was more important. So I'm wondering if at the heart of Russell's question was how can we, as a planet, help the developing nations perhaps to avoid some of our mistakes? But
well, I think they're making it worse for them because they're sending the manufacturing out there.
That's the situation we end up in.
But, and possibly
Really
going to make it even worse when they start bringing that work back. It's going to create unemployment.
Will they bring it back?
Well, yeah.
If it's bad practice, they want it back.
Well, that bit, yes. But one of the motivations for AI is that if you can remove the human element from your production line, which the robots are doing that, now there's no need to send that work off to the Far East. You might as well keep it here where the market is. And this is the reshoring of work, which there seems to be more articles about that happening in America than over here, but I'm sure it'll be the same here. Now, if the market's here, why would you have it manufactured over there? Unless it's cheaper. If you remove the labour, it may not be cheap. If they're now getting past, toxics and environmental issues, that might be a reason for them to leave it there. But that wouldn't be ethical, of course.
Okay, so could we thank Rory again for his presentation?
Okay, thank you.